September 1st, 1939. The world stood on the brink of disaster. Across Europe, tensions had been building for years. Nations were still recovering from the devastation of World War I. Yet a new and even more destructive conflict was about to begin. Within 6 years, nearly every corner of the globe would be touched by war. Entire cities would be reduced to rubble. Millions of soldiers would fight across deserts, oceans, mountains, and frozen plains. More than 60 million people would lose their lives. World War II would become the deadliest conflict in human history. This is the story of how it began, how it unfolded, and how it changed the world forever. Footage of Europe after World War I, destroyed towns, wounded soldiers, and peace negotiations. The roots of World War II can be traced back to the aftermath of the First World War. In 1919, world leaders gathered to negotiate peace. The result was the Treaty of Versailles. Germany was forced to accept responsibility for the war. It lost territory, faced severe military restrictions, and was ordered to pay massive reparations. For many Germans, the treaty felt less like peace and more like punishment. As the years passed, economic crises and political instability spread throughout Germany. The Great Depression pushed millions into poverty and unemployment. Confidence in democratic institutions collapsed. In this environment, a new political movement gained momentum. Led by Adolf Hitler, the Nazi Party promised to restore Germany's strength and national pride. By 1933, Hitler had become Germany's leader. Over the next several years, he transformed the country into a dictatorship. Political opponents were silenced, military power expanded, and aggressive plans for territorial expansion took shape. At the same time, militarist leaders in Japan pursued their own ambitions throughout Asia. The world watched nervously as powerful nations prepared for conflict. Yet many hoped another global war could still be avoided. That hope would soon disappear. Maps showed German expansion across Europe. On September 1st, 1939, German forces crossed the border into Poland. The invasion was swift and overwhelming. Using a strategy known as Blitzkrieg or lightning war, German troops combined tanks, aircraft, artillery, and infantry into a highly coordinated assault. Polish defenses were quickly overwhelmed. Within weeks, Poland had fallen. 2 days later, United Kingdom and France declared war on Germany. The Second World War had begun. Over the following months, Germany achieved a series of stunning victories. Denmark fell, Norway fell, Belgium and the Netherlands were defeated. Then came France. Many believed France possessed one of the strongest armies in Europe. Yet in just a matter of weeks, German forces swept through the country. Paris was occupied. Europe was shocked. Only Britain remained as a major opponent in Western Europe. Footage of fighter aircraft, anti-aircraft guns, and bombed neighborhoods. Hitler now turned his attention toward Britain. Before an invasion could take place, Germany needed control of the skies. What followed became known as the Battle of Britain. For months, German aircraft launched attacks against military targets, factories, and cities. The skies above Britain became battlefields. Night after night, bombs fell on London and other cities during a campaign known as the Blitz. Families sheltered in underground stations. Firefighters battled endless blazes. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed. Yet Britain refused to surrender. Pilots of the Royal Air Force fought tirelessly against the German Luftwaffe. Against overwhelming odds, they prevented Germany from gaining air superiority. It marked Hitler's first major setback. The planned invasion of Britain was abandoned. Snow-covered battlefields appear on screen. In June 1941, Hitler made a decision that would dramatically alter the course of the war. Despite having previously signed an agreement with the Soviet Union, Germany launched a massive invasion of its eastern neighbor. The operation was called Barbarossa. More than 3 million German soldiers advanced across thousands of kilometers of territory. Initially, the invasion appeared unstoppable. Entire Soviet armies were encircled. Millions of prisoners were captured. Cities fell one after another. But the Soviet Union did not collapse. As German forces pushed deeper into Soviet territory, supply lines stretched dangerously thin. Then winter arrived. Temperatures plunged far below freezing. Vehicles failed. Weapons jammed. Soldiers suffered from exposure and frostbite. The rapid advance came to a halt. The conflict on the Eastern Front would become one of the most brutal struggles in human history. Pacific Ocean maps and naval fleets appear. While war raged across Europe, tensions in Asia continued to rise. Japan sought to expand its influence and secure access to resources throughout the Pacific. Relations with the United States deteriorated. Then, on the morning of December 7, 1941, Japanese aircraft launched a surprise attack against the American naval base at Attack on Pearl Harbor. Battleships were sunk. Aircraft were destroyed. Thousands of Americans were killed or wounded. The following day, the United States declared war on Japan. Soon afterward, Germany declared war on the United States. The conflict had become truly global. The immense industrial and military power of America now entered the war. By the end of 1942, the Axis powers had reached the height of their expansion. German armies occupied much of Europe, while Japan controlled vast territories across Asia and the Pacific. Yet beneath these victories, cracks were beginning to appear. The year 1943 would mark a dramatic shift in the course of the war. In the Soviet Union, the brutal Battle of Stalingrad came to an end. After months of fierce combat, the German Sixth Army surrendered in February 1943. The defeat shocked the world and shattered the myth of German invincibility. For the first time, Hitler's armies were forced into a major retreat. Meanwhile, in North Africa, Allied forces under British and American command pushed Axis troops back across the desert. In May 1943, nearly 250,000 German and Italian soldiers surrendered in Tunisia, ending the North African campaign. With victory secured in Africa, the Allies turned their attention to Europe. In July 1943, they invaded Sicily, opening a new front against the Axis. The invasion led to the downfall of Mussolini's regime, and Italy soon surrendered. However, German forces quickly occupied much of the country and continued fighting. As the war raged on, Allied bombers launched massive air raids against German cities and industrial centers. Day and night, thousands of aircraft targeted factories, railways, and military installations, gradually weakening Germany's ability to continue the war. In the east, the Soviet Red Army continued its relentless advance. Battle after battle pushed German forces farther west. The enormous resources of the Soviet Union, combined with growing Allied pressure on multiple fronts, placed Germany in an increasingly desperate position. Then came one of the most important days of the war. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces launched Operation Overlord, better known as D-Day. More than 150,000 soldiers landed on the beaches of Normandy in France. It was the largest amphibious invasion in history. Despite heavy resistance, the Allies established a foothold and began the liberation of Western Europe. Within months, Paris was free, and Allied armies advanced toward Germany. By early 1945, the Third Reich was collapsing. Soviet forces approached Berlin from the east, while Allied armies crossed into Germany from the west. On April 30, 1945, Adolf Hitler committed suicide in his bunker beneath Berlin. A week later, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Victory in Europe had finally been achieved. Yet the war was not over. In the Pacific, Japan continued to fight despite devastating losses. American forces moved steadily closer to the Japanese mainland, capturing strategic islands at tremendous cost. Faced with the prospect of a bloody invasion, the United States deployed a new and terrifying weapon. Atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. The destruction was unlike anything the world had ever seen. On September 2, 1945, Japan formally surrendered, bringing World War II to an end. After 6 years of conflict, the deadliest war in human history was finally over. The world would never be the same again. This section works as the second half of a documentary, covering events from late 1942 through the end of the war in 1945.